'tis the season to be jolly, unless you're Ebenezer Scrooge or the Grinch. As much as I enjoy watching the Grinch's heart grow 3 sizes, graciously giving the Who's back their presents, the gothic horror of The Christmas Carol has always intrigued me. Sure, it scared me out of my wits back in the day, but I loved how realistic Scrooge's change is. Let's all just sit by the fire and figure out how Ebenezer earned his redemption. The Christmas Carol is 179 years old, meaning that there are many adaptations to Charles Dickens's story. The main 2 that we're going to focus on today is the 2009 A Christmas Carol because of its spooky atmosphere. Some of these scenes are truly terrifying. Still have no idea why Disney thought this was a good idea. And 1992's The Muppets Christmas Carol, just because it's one of my favorites. Ebenezer Scrooge is not a nice man. Most people hate him because of his money-lending business. Giving to charity or enjoying the holiday merriment is not something Scrooge would be seen partaking in. He looks out for one thing and one thing alone, himself, stating, "I wish to be left alone," causing people to think he's indifferent and cold-hearted, treating both his nephew Fred and his employee Bob Cratchit badly. Despite this, Scrooge isn't a heartless evil man. He gives Bob and the other employees Christmas Day off. Bob has to do some convincing, but nevertheless, Scrooge eases up.
Humbug.
Okay, maybe he's still a jerk, but he is not a lost cause. Ebenezer is greedy, taking money even from the poorest of families, but he's still human. He has a great deal of loss in his life, losing his sister Fan, his business partner Jacob Marley, and his fiancée Belle. When these individuals are no longer present, grief starts to creep in, icing his heart, making him fall into denial. This so happens to be the first stage of grief. In this phase, individuals are a little absent-minded, avoidant, and keep busy most of the time. In the opening parts of this story, Scrooge ticks off all of these, absent-minded about the next day being Christmas Day. I can understand if you forgot that tomorrow was Tuesday or something, but Christmas Day, that one's a little hard to forget. He avoids friends and family, working hard to stay busy at his job. Although denial may make Scrooge cold, it is the first step in creating a big change. Here's where the story takes a turn for the supernatural. Or not. Maybe all this is going on in his head. Each ghost represents a part of himself that he wants to change, or he just is having a really insane dream. You're free to decide for yourself. When Scrooge tucks into bed for the night, he's visited by his late business partner, Jacob Marley. This is the catalyst for Scrooge's change, seeing his friend layered with chains from his greedy deeds, suffering even in the afterlife, warning Scrooge that the same fate will be placed upon him if he doesn't turn things around. This whole encounter scares Ebenezer, but he's still in denial of what he sees, still believing that Jacob was a good man, well respected in the business world. Unfortunately, Jacob doesn't see it the same way, destined to live out his eternity mindlessly traveling, carrying the weight of the mistakes that he's made all throughout his life. A longer chain waits for Scrooge if he doesn't amend his cold-hearted ways. Jacob Marley is a cautionary tale for Scrooge, not in just the idea of being greedy, but in the idea of being in denial as well. This is an intervention for Scrooge, but he doesn't want to hear it, still being as stubborn as ever. The first of the 3 spirits to haunt Ebenezer is the ghost of Christmas Past. There are a lot of unsettling things within this story, Jacob Marley, the ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, but for me, in the Muppets Christmas Carol, the ghost of Christmas Past creeps me out. Why does she look like a creepy doll? I don't like it. A Christmas Carol isn't any better because it just looks like Jim Carrey's face plopped on top of flame. The specter of the past and Scrooge take a trip down memory lane. This is where things start to change between the 2 different adaptations. The Muppets Christmas Carol negates a portion of Scrooge's past in favor of making a sad love story. The Muppets focuses on Scrooge's grief towards his ex-fiancée Belle, because gold was was more important than their relationship. But that's not all there is. The 2009 version adds a bit more hardship to Scrooge's life, adding in the reason he's attending boarding school in the first place, to get away from his abusive father. Christmas after Christmas, Ebenezer sits alone, unable to see his dear sister. After some time passes, Fan and her brother reunite, bringing him back home, stating that their father is a changed man. Whether Scrooge's father was visited by 3 spirits of his own, or he saw the error of his own ways, it's honestly up to interpretation. Fan is the kind heart that helps Scrooge still believe that there was good in the world. That all shatters when she dies giving birth to her son Fred. This is a big reason why Scrooge has a lot of disdain for his nephew. He blames him for the death of his sister. Fan isn't the only kind-hearted individual in Scrooge's life, that being Belle. Unlike his sister, Belle can't save Ebenezer from the man he's become. The old man is haunted by the loss of Belle, wanting this memory in particular to stop, which is what the Ghost of Christmas Past's job was, to see if Scrooge would react any differently to his old memories. He does, stepping into the next stage of grief, anger. Within this phase, individuals feel frustrated, resentment, and feel a loss of control. Scrooge once again checks every box. Frustrated that the ghost had to show him this in the first place, resentment towards his past self, and begs the spirit to remove him from the memory, because he has no control over the outcome. With that last sad memory, Scrooge is left alone to recall his wrongdoings. The spirit of Christmas Present is next to visit Ebenezer. All fun at first. Both Spirit and Scrooge sing and laugh. Everything is all smiles, until A Christmas Carol decides to terrify its audience by having the spirit laugh himself to the grave. I guess the goal of every animation company in 2009 was to traumatize every kid that went to the cinema. You got The Christmas Carol, you got Coraline, and you got 9? Goodness, did kids even get any sleep that year? Spectre of the Present shows Scrooge 2 different Christmas days, one at Bob Cratchit's and the other at Fred's. 2 households different due to their wealth discrepancies. Although Bob's family is poor, they're still full of joy, grateful for what they do have. Despite Scrooge's coldness towards Cratchit, Bob is still thankful for his boss. Even if his wife is not too thrilled, thinking that he's a cold-hearted snake, passive-aggressively drinking to Scrooge's health. The biggest impact on Scrooge is Tiny Tim, a child like himself dealt unfortunate cards in life. Despite all this, Tim still smiles, whereas at Fred's home, merriment is being had in spite of others, making fun of the man Ebenezer is. Even though Fred thinks his uncle is too good for him and his friends, Fred still toasts to Scrooge. 2 Christmases, different due to wealth, but still raise a glass to Scrooge. Bob is grateful for the job Ebenezer provided, and Fred feels sorry for the old man. In both scenes, Ebenezer is shown being anxious and insecure of what people are saying about him, leading us to our next phase of grief, the stage of bargaining, where individuals feel anxious, insecure, and shame. All 3 are represented in Scrooge as he hears others' harsh words, wanting to walk away from what they're saying, even hearing his own words thrown back at him by the specter. Despite the specter's jolly demeanor, he shows Scrooge the truth, forcing him to look at both sides of the coin, looking at how the privileged live in ignorance of the social classes below them, while the poor are blind to wanting more. Even as the specter dies, want and ignorance still live on. Both cannot be stopped, but Scrooge can be wary of both. As the chucklehead laughs one final time, I don't think I'll ever get that laugh out of my brain. Truly freaking terrifying. Scrooge is left with the ghost ghost of Christmas yet to come. A ghost that does not talk, only directs Ebenezer by pointing, forcing him to reflect on what the future could be if he doesn't alter his ways. Within these future events, there is a sense of foreboding, first being shown a group of happy people looting wealthy goods, next seeing the sadness of the Cratchit family where Tiny Tim is no longer living. Last, he's shown his own gravestone, leading Scrooge into a state of depression, the fourth stage of grief, where he's hopeless, helpless, and disappointed. Due to his actions, he's in a coffin of his own making, seeing the people he took money from now returning the favor by stealing all his valuables after his passing, seeing how Tiny Tim's death broke Bob's spirit, destined to walk a similar path of grief as Scrooge does. All can be avoided if Scrooge adjusts to a different lifestyle. Death is inevitable. Maybe Scrooge is destined to die next Christmas or the next one after that. Nothing can change that. What can be changed is Scrooge's outlook and the legacy he leaves behind. The spirit of Christmas yet to come brings everything together, helping Scrooge see how he can live his life with the lessons from the past, present, and future, leading Scrooge to the final stage of grief, acceptance, finding newfound happiness in the world around him, becoming wiser and more compassionate and even more mindful, donating to charity, buying a turkey and giving it to the Cratchits, and raising Bob's salary. Scrooge is a changed man who helps everyone around him. I think the Muppets Christmas Carol says it best, with a loving guarantee that even if we part, I will hold you close with a thankful heart. Honestly, all these songs in the Muppet version are great. Scrooge earns his redemption because he's able to self-reflect, seeing the error of his ways and working to be better. Every day is a new opportunity to be charitable. That's why this story is still so relevant even after 179 years later. Throughout our lives, we will have points of grief, but to keep our hearts from freezing over with indifference, we must learn to be kind to ourselves and to others, to understand that the world is bigger than ourselves, not just during Christmas time, but year-round. We can spread kindness. That doesn't mean we have to empty our wallets to say we care. Holding the door for someone, smiling at a complete stranger, or even actively listening to friends and family can go a long way. One simple action can mean a great deal to someone. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not a huge fan of the Christmas season, but I always find comfort within this story. Please let me know what your favorite Christmas Carol adaptation is in the comments down below. If you liked this video, here's another you'll enjoy. Happy holidays everyone, and I'll see you next year.